of the great rabbis of yesteryear. Now, Dalet Kislev, the 4th of Kislev, marks the Hilula of a great rabbi from Greece, from Saloniki. His name was Rabbi Eliyahu Kobo Z'tl Tzadik Livracha. He passed away in English year 1689. We're talking about nearly about 340 years ago here from time of recording. He came, remember the Kobo family, we've actually related a video on an occasion before, that they happened to be a great rabbinic dynasty of many, many generations of great rabbis. And his father happened to be a very great rabbi, Rabbi Yehuda Kobo, Hashem Yikam Damo. He was actually a great rabbi in Seloniki, respectively. And at that point in time, they were part of the Ottoman Empire, I think Seloniki was. He would learn Torah under great rabbinic auspices, Rabbi Eliyahu would, among the great rabbis of Seloniki. Especially, I believe one of his rabbis was the famous Rabbi Chaim Shabtai, who was the author of the great Torah book, the Torat Chaim. Now, his father, who we mentioned about just a second ago, Rabbi Yehuda Kobo, was one of the great wise rabbis of Saloniki. Unfortunately, I believe it's reported over that he was killed, he was murdered in the year 1637. This was, I think he actually went on a shlichut to representing the Jewish congregation of Saloniki to speak to the Sultan Murat IV, if I'm not mistaken, with regards to tax matters at that point in time. Unfortunately, there was a lot of anti-Semitism that also took place, just like it took place in various different parts all over the world. It very much took a place over there. He was trying to reason, I think, with Sultan about let's just say, there was a poor people in the city, especially among the Jewish community, that were, I think, engaged with regards to the clothes business of somehow, and talking about the taxes that were imposed upon them. But unfortunately, he lost his life, possibly because of this, if I'm not mistaken. I would recommend everyone to research within regards to this topic. Now, Rabbi Eliyahu Kobo would actually take on many different great roles in Saloniki. He would be the head of the Jewish court over there, which is a very prominent and responsible and difficult position in of itself. This was in the place and was very at the greatness of it. He stood also as a Rosh Yeshiva in Saloniki. Remember, we stated before that Saloniki and Greece was, let's say, the epicenter of Torah at that point in time. There were many of the greatest rabbis in the world were rabbis in Saloniki, in Greece. Among his Talmidim included the famous Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Ashkenazi, who happens to be a very great rabbi. And I think he actually, if I'm not mistaken, maybe came from the Czech Republic or not, to Saloniki to learn with among this great Sephardi Rabbanim at that point in time, especially Rabbi Eliyahu Kobo. So you can see many of the Ashkenazim, they really were attracted to come to Greece at that point in time and learn from the great Rabbanim in of itself, which is very interesting. Now, remember, friends, we've already covered many rabbis from the great, Greece country in of itself. It's, I think that at one stage in time, even Shabtai Tzvi, the false prophet, would actually make an appearance in Saloniki. And that's a whole topic in of itself. And I think, unfortunately, they did another false, let's say, Messiah or Moshiach. Messiah would actually try and come and impose himself at one point in time. Another one, I think, and some of the name... Yaakov Philosoph, if I'm not mistaken, and this was in the year 1686. Another more sheker taking place. What we should speak about at that point in time, maybe leave that to another class. Then I think afterwards it would have been, I think, several years later, if I'm not mistaken. There was a lot of various different plagues that actually took place in this vicinity in Saloniki in of itself. There was also wars, I think, taking place, especially from Turkey, and I think from Venice, also very different areas near this specific country in of itself. Now, it's reported over, I believe, in the year 1688. There were more occurrences actually took place, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in the year 1688. Just to confirm with it, I think there was an attack inside the city in itself, and in 1689 a great plague broke out in the city, also in Saloniki, and I think many of these are written down of what actually took place at that point in time in this, let's say, in this very turbulent time period in of itself. We know that he passed away on the 4th of Kislev in the English year 1689. I'm not too sure if it was about the because of this plague in of itself, but he left many great books within regards to a Ktav Yad in manuscript form in of itself, and these answers were preserved from his handwriting and were found by, I think, the sage Rabbi Moshe and Mamarilo would actually, I believe, print it out. I think two of his grandsons, his daughter's two sons, if I'm not mistaken, Rabbi Yehuda Kandali and Rabbi Hacham Eliyahu Kandali published various of his great shuvot, his answers. There was a special work, a famous work in of itself, called Aderet Eliyahu, a very famous Torah book in of itself, which actually dealt with that. I think it came out with other great publications of I think Hacham Yeshua Khandali, if I'm not mistaken, in Pnei Yeshua, and this was, I believe, in the English year 1739, so in Kushta, respectively. So this would have been about 50 years after the great rabbi had passed away. So very interesting. I would recommend everyone to learn more about the great Chacham in his lifetime, the Pnei Yeshua. I'd recommend everyone to look at this great Torah work in of itself and learn it in the greatest depths possible. Remember, in Saloniki, we mentioned many great rabbis that actually came from there at various different occasions, especially during the 16 and 1700s, respectively. Now, friends, we've already covered in this series about 30 rabbis from Greece, or the great rabbis of yesteryear, especially in last week. I think we covered already 3 or 4 rabbis from the great Chachamim of Seloniki. Friends, we're a community here. We are learning about the great rabbis of yesteryear, just some of the highlights. I'd recommend everyone to learn much more about them and not just listen to these short clips, learn much more and research about them. There's books there's encyclopedias of these great Rabbanim, and search more within regards to them. Please, everyone, subscribe to the channel, like and share the videos. And also, if you happen to be related to any of these great Rabbanim who we are speaking about, please send me an email. I'd love to know more. I'm wishing you all well and blessings here from